This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining us again at Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. So you know we're in for a lot of vibes this evening. Higher than any other vibes, actually. All right. My name is Donna Morgan, and I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora Alliance. Our co-host for the show. They're running late. You know, everybody's out doing stuff and enjoying this. What are we, almost 90-degree weather here in Orlando today? So they'll be popping on. But today, this evening, actually, we have two awesome women that we've got to share and spread the word so loud in recognition of March being Women's History Month. So let's big up, first of all, to the women out there going above and beyond and achieving and striving in so many ways, holding down so many roles. So we got to say big ups first to women and the women and trailblazers in our various communities. So we want to start by introducing our first guest for this topic, women in cannabis business. Yes, you hear me right. The cannabis business. Our first guest is Roz McCarthy, founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, Black Buddha Cannabis. Hello,
Yes.
Roz.
Hey, Donna, what's going on, sister? How are you?
Yes, fabulous, fabulous. Our next guest will be NICOLE BUFFONG, founder of Purple Plant Magic. Just that name, Purple Plant Magic. She's also the Western Regional Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and she's a board of director of the Chamber of Cannabis and ACHEM. So we are so excited for this topic. We're going to cover so many areas of this cannabis business to make sure everybody's at the table, right? The health awareness. So there's several aspects that we're going to be sharing with you all tonight. So get your juice, get your drinks, your spirit, and sit back and
Get some paper. Let's get some paper and pen and write some notes down because yes, because the information is so important. And honestly, instead of having to have someone force feed it, you're going to have an opportunity to learn quite a bit tonight. So get your paper and pen.
And this will benefit families, even if it's not for yourself. Family, some family member or friends that suffering in some kind of way. So we're gonna start. Yeah. Let's start, ladies, on the medicinal aspect of this marijuana business. So would that be NICOLE? You want to get started with us on that?
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your platform this evening. Hello from the West Coast. I am ringing in from Las Vegas, Nevada. As a Western Regional Director for M4MM, I manage 8 states in the region. That includes California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Oklahoma, Arizona, Nevada, and the beautiful state of Hawaii. And so it's great to be here with you this evening and all of your listeners and followers. I can just start with my own personal journey into this space. I came into the cannabis industry as a cannabis patient. I was diagnosed with HIV in 2017, and that was the catalyst for me to learn more about this plant as a medicine. And one of the first things that I learned, one of the first pieces of research that I found was a research out of the University of Illinois, I believe it was, no, University of Washington State. And what they had discovered was that there was a certain compound in the plant, THCA and THCV, that has high antiviral properties and can reduce the viral load of someone like myself with HIV or even a viral infection like, let's say, COVID. So that was one of the first research that I found, research white papers that I found, and that just made me go dig deeper. And so one of the first things that I learned about the plant scientifically is how it interacts with our bodies. There's a system in our bodies known as the endocannabinoid system, which is like a response system on a cellular level that operates within our bodies. And the plant responds to that system, to those receptors. And so that's one of the first things that I recommend people learn so that they have a better understanding and foundational understanding about how the plant is used as medicine. Phytocannabinoids, those are compounds that are found in the plant like THC and CBD, attached to receptors in our bodies that are operated by this endocannabinoid system. And those receptors manage things like pain and sleep and hunger. And so that's why the plant can be used to help you manage those things. That's why the plant is prescribed to cancer patients, has been prescribed to cancer patients and patients that are dying from AIDS, because it helps to manage pain, because it helps to boost your hunger, your appetite. When you're undergoing chemotherapy, that's one of the things that you lose. You lose your appetite because that poison that's being pumped into you from chemotherapy causes that. That's one of the side effects. Well, one of the side effects of cannabis is hunger. It actually attaches to a receptor that floats around in your body that stimulates that appetite. So that's just one of many things that the plant does scientifically in our bodies. But for anyone who's listening, I know that I say the word and it might seem a little complicated, but the word is endo, like inside, ENDO, cannabinoid system. One name to look up that will help you understand is a video out there on YouTube done by Dr. Rachel Knox, and it's called The Endocannabinoid System, The Power of One. And so you can watch that video. It's about 15 minutes, and she does a great job of explaining the endocannabinoid system and how the cannabis plant is utilized within that system. And just I want to add this, that system's job is to create homeostasis in the body, which is balance. That's the job of this system.
Wow. I don't think most people understood what you just said, like how this really affects us, right? And you just, because of your personal situation.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the plant reduces the viral load in my body. Not when I smoke it. That's one thing that you have to understand. By burning the plant, I don't get those phytocannabinoids. I don't get those compounds that help to reduce my viral load. I only get those compounds when I put the plant in tea, in water. When I cold extract those compounds from the plant, that's how I get the medicinal benefit, not by smoking it.
Yeah. So Donna, if I can jump in and just talk a little bit. The reason why I started M4MM back in 2016. So let me just give y'all a foundation. The foundation is that Donna and I have known each other forever. We have been sister girl, we've been friends, we've been, out here in the business community in Orlando, Florida. And, back in 2015, 2016, as I was working on different projects as a consultant, the whole entire focus, the state of Florida was focused on the medical marijuana program that was going to be on the ballot for the state of Florida. And for me, when I started doing the research, I researched on the medical side. I lost my mom to breast cancer. So back in 2005, if this plant were available to her, it may have given her a better quality of life. And those were some things that were really interesting to me. And then the other thing is that my son has sickle cell. So Brian is a sickle cell patient. I'm a sickle cell mom. And for me, when I looked at this plant, I wasn't a consumer. When I went to school, it was like, no, you don't smoke weed, you don't touch marijuana, this is a bad thing, you'll go to jail. All this stuff was happening. However, my research was telling me something different. Just like on this show right now, you guys are hearing a different conversation, a different perspective on cannabis, on marijuana, weed, reefer, whatever you want to call it. You're hearing a different perspective than what we've been taught, especially in the Black community. We've been taught that this is the devil's lettuce, that if you do this, that you're lazy, that you don't want to work, that you don't want to do anything with yourself. We don't really understand that the homeostasis that we were looking for in our body, this plant has ingredients that gives us that. So when Uncle Junebug was on the porch smoking weed all the time, Might have been because Uncle Junebug had some issues going on, and the plant gave him some balance and made him feel better so that he could go out and go work, go do whatever he needs to do. But we were taught that if you smoke, that means you're being lazy, you don't want to work, you don't like, you just, you know, even the smell of it, all of that stuff. So I didn't have any foundation of this plant from a medical perspective. All I knew was I had a 17-year-old son that is diagnosed with sickle cell, that I want to make sure that he didn't have to run back and forth to the hospital, being put on Percocet, morphine, Dilaudid, Toradol, all this medicine that just tears up his body when he's in pain crises. And I said, you know what? I don't want people to look at my son as he's not a drug addict, he's not a criminal, he's not, he's not out here just a freeloader. He's just a kid that has a disease that needs support and needs something to be able to help him manage his pain. And that's how M4MM was started, literally from a passion of how do we get the word out? And especially because we want to square up the fact that this is medicine and it should be viewed as medicine.
Wow. Being Jamaican, my family and everybody around me been pushing this thing for a long time, right? But and also in our culture, there is the negative, like, it was the negative stereotypes of the Rastafarians were, it's now turning out that the Rastafarians are smarter than everybody, because
listen, they did it for sacrament. Like it's even right. It goes even deeper than medicine. It's spiritual, and we didn't even understand that. We just had during Black History Month, and if you guys go to M4MM United on YouTube, we had a special about Peter Tosh, who is he's the grandfather, he is the godfather of legalizing, and he's from Jamaica, and people don't even realize his contribution. He was a Rastafarian that was like, listen, let me be free, and if this is what I ingest or intake in order for spiritual reasons as a sacrament, allow me to do that without having to worry about going to jail and hiding and all these different things. And so we had no idea how, when he came up with the song Legalize It, how it was so much ahead of the times. And this was in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my father is a Rastafarian. So I'm first generation American. My mother's from Trinidad and my father's from Dominica. And my father was also a surgeon. He was a laparoscopic surgeon and OBGYN. And as a professional, when he decided to grow his locks, which was well into his career, he had patients that walked out. He had patients that said they refused to go to a doctor. We were living in North Carolina at the time. So obviously North Carolina is not amenable to professionals with locks, especially Black men. And so he had to accept that, but he always knew that that was his calling. My dad was understood that how much Rastafarian lifestyle, what it meant to him. It was more than just, he didn't view it as a religion. It was a way of life, because that's how the Rastas look at it. And so when he decided to grow his locks, it was me and him in the house. I was 17 at the time, and both of us decided to grow our locks at the same time. I was a freshman in college, and I was living in Atlanta and he was living in Columbus. And we would swap recipes and ideas for our ITIL food style and our ITIL living. But we were the only two in the house out of my whole family that were living like that. And so I really got an opportunity to understand that Rastafarianism was a way of life. And then after losing my father, a few days after my 25th birthday, he was the person that I would have gone to when I got this diagnosis. I would have been, I would have asked him, how do I manage this best, Dad? And I know what he would have told me. He was the first adult that I smoked with as a teenager. He would have told me to utilize the plant. He would have told me, start eating your ITIL lifestyle, start eating a plant-based lifestyle, because that is how you're going to heal your body. And so the work that I do now is so important to me because I know his spirit is with me. I can feel it in an ancestral way, that he is with me, guiding me through this process of understanding how to teach my community about using the plant, how to teach my community about healing themselves using plant medicine. And cannabis is just one of the plants that I use. I don't want anybody to think that cannabis is the only thing that I'm advocating for here, because it's not. I had to adopt a plant-based lifestyle so that I can heal my body naturopathically. So it takes more than just cannabis, but cannabis is definitely one of those plant medicines that I use daily to help reduce my viral load. and helped me to manage the pain and anxiety that comes with having HIV, having fibroids, as well as having herpes.
Yeah. I would tell you this, Donna, there's not enough research that's being done. A lot of the research is being happening over in Israel. There's different diagnoses from lupus, especially that affects the Black community in a really exaggerated way, where we see ourselves we're being hospitalized more, we're having more, we're having more time off from work. Because of certain conditions like lupus, like MS, like fibromyalgia, like sickle cell anemia. These are very specific to our community. So in our estimation, we have to do the whole job of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. It was to say first, here we are in this industry that's growing. We're minorities in it because it's growing so fast. We're not even being able to catch up from an economic perspective, right? Then the second thing is that we have also been disproportionately impacted during the war on drugs. And so even from that perspective, we don't even have a voice to say, hey, stop gelling us, And then the other thing is just access to the plant. So like in the state of Florida, it costs like $175 to get your medical card. And then after that, you got to pay the state of Florida $75. It's expensive. So the whole where we are right now is being able to give our community more information, more resources to learn more about why cannabis is not your gateway drug, but also how to get access. And you can start with something from a delivery. It's not like we think about it like you got to smoke. Like you don't have to smoke. There's so many different ways to consume. I have some drops right here. These are drops that I use personally for myself because of my concussion syndrome that I have. But literally you can have a vape, you can have drops, you can have gummies, there's chocolates, you can have, you can vape dry flower. Of course you can consume by rolling it in a joint or what have you, but there's so many different ways. A suppository, if you have something that's connected to the uterus for fibroids. So many different ways that you can ingest the goodness of this plant. And that's what we're here for, to talk about and to encourage people to do your own education and research. And when you do it, there's studies online, but you'll find anecdotal YouTube videos, you'll find resources. There's so many dispensaries out here now that can give you information on the power of this plant. And that's why we're here, right, Nicole?
That's right. That's why we're here. We're here to empower our community. We're here to give them the education and the resources that they need to go out and make their own decision about what is best for their own health care. I choose not to use synthetic drugs because I choose to use plant medicine. And it should be my choice. It shouldn't be a choice that my legislator makes for me. It shouldn't be a choice that my mayor makes for me or that my city council makes for me. It should be a personal choice between me and my doctor, how I choose to use plants to heal my body. And that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the patient's right to be able to make that decision for themselves. And me as a community educator, my role is to be an example, to show people how to utilize plants as medicine, but also to educate them on the many, many different ways to use plants as medicine. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that, the plant itself has so many medicinal properties and can help in so many different ways. But like Roz said, smoking it is not always the only way. There's so many other ways that we can utilize the plant that help us medicinally without the side effect of being high, without the psychoactivity, but definitely more with the medicine.
I love it. And I don't think that people really understand that, as you said, it's medicinal.
That's right.
It's already been tabooed as
the devil's lettuce,
as we would say in the Caribbean, just lazy slackness type, But it's interesting to know that the U.S. This was being used as medicine many, back in the 20s, 30s,
yes, in the 30s,
and
up until 1837 or 1829, it was in the U.S. pharmacopoeia. So it was prescribed for things like migraines, childbirth, arthritis. You could walk into a pharmacy and it would be sitting on a shelf, cannabis oil. One of the things that I want to mention to your audience is that in early January, there was some white papers that came out, research that came out. Some of you might have seen the headline that said that cannabis cures COVID. And so there was a research that came out of the University of Oregon on this. And what it proved was that CBDA and CBGA, two compounds found in the hemp plant, not in the cannabis plant with high THC, but in the hemp plant, stopped COVID from entering into human cells. So what that means was that these two compounds attached to the receptors that the spike protein, the SARS-CoV-19 spike protein attached to. And so because they attached to these compounds, it blocked the COVID virus from entering into those cells. So yeah, cannabis cures COVID, but you don't receive those compounds by smoking it. The only way you would get those compounds from the hemp plant was by cold extracting it, which meant putting it into warm water, not boiling water, putting it into coconut oil, allowing it to infuse into the coconut oil naturally. So those are some of the ways that you would get those specific compounds out of the plant, not by smoking it.
Right, and so good to know. And yeah, I grew up with tea, having it as tea in my household. The minute you said you had a problem, oh my God, it was like, okay.
My grandmother did the same thing. She kept the bottle of rum in the back of the liquor cabinet that had all these bushes and trees and stems in them. And I didn't know what they were growing up, but growing up, when you got a cough, you got a teaspoon of that, and whatever was wrong with you was gone the next morning. So yes, I understand. Mm-hmm.
And like Roz was saying, the Black community in a whole seem to sickle cell, lupus, these autoimmune diseases. So if this is something, if cannabis can be used to help, I mean, not only in that, but we see in cancer, the studies. I mean, do you guys have, I'm not sure if legally you can say it, well, I wouldn't say cure, but it's beneficial. Have you?
So what it does, I have. And what it does is it manages the symptom. That's the verbiage that we can legally and technically use. We can't say that it heals anything. We can say that it manages the symptoms better than your synthetic pharmaceutical options. Because we know that the side effects from using cannabis are hungry, happy, sleepy. That's it. They don't stop you from breathing. They don't stop your heart. They don't stop, they don't give you a stroke. The plant is not toxic and it's not lethal. You take too much Tylenol and you just will not wake up. You take too much cannabis and you'll have the best sleep you've ever had. So it's not that it's an alternative. It's the natural alternative to synthetic drugs. And so we're just saying that this is a better alternative medicine, not saying that it is a cure-all. Because even if you have cancer, it doesn't cure cancer. It stops cancer cells from duplicating, and it can help to manage the pain and side effects from chemo. But there are other things that you need to incorporate into your lifestyle to actually cure cancer.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is to think about when you are having symptoms, and especially if you're taking medication, that you are just at a point where you want to look for something that's more natural, that's not going to be so harsh on your body. The ability to have, cannabis as an option, or even to understand if it's something to look at, it's reinvigorating. It is a new day. For me to be able to talk all throughout the country about the use of cannabis, to be able to talk about it, to say this is my career. I mean, we're really pioneers right now. We are making history, because this really literally is almost like prohibition with the liquor industry back in the 30s, where it was prohibition. It has been prohibition against cannabis for years now. And there's a lot of politics and a lot of other crap behind why it's happened and why we haven't seen the research, and talk about the pharma industry and all that kind of good stuff. But it's almost like the cat is out, like the cat is out the bag now. And so with that being said, I'm trying to empower our community to ask questions, to find you someone like a NICOLE, find you someone like a Dr. Knox, or find you someone like a Dr. Kelly King in Tampa, Florida, or find you someone like a Dr. Newton. And these are Black physicians. But there's other ones as well. But find you Dr. Damas that's down, and he's a Haitian native that's down in South Florida. we need to start seeing our doctors and asking questions and looking at this as an option for care and to help us, to make us feel better. My son is 22, 23 right now, and he is a medical marijuana carrying patient, and it's been a night and day difference. He's able to sleep when he needs to sleep. Because again, the plant has different strains, it has different origins. So you just don't get one plant and it does everything. The different composition of the plant, and I'll have Nicole talk about maybe terpenes, because she does such a great job talking about terpenes. So if you want to know what that is, but the different composition of the plant can do different things. I'm excited about creating a line that's very specific to what experience you want. So if you're someone and you're like, I need a gummy and I just want to be able to sleep at night, I'm creating a gummy with my own new line, which is called Black Buddha Cannabis, that allows you to be able to tap right into what you want to do. And the configuration of the formulation is going to help you with sleeping. Let's say if you want a gummy for energy, in the morning you just feel off. You feel like you need something to give you a boost. You don't want to be high. You don't want to be, like, oh my gosh, my head's spinning, but you need a boost. So these are the type of things that are coming out that are going to help patients and help us to be able to live better, to do better, and to get better.
I saw a documentary and how you were talking about the different formulas, and again, depending on where people go to, I think they need to research. Not any and every, you don't just roll up to any and every CBD store. So that's again doing research.
And you don't smoke every OG Kush or whatever. It may sound good or whatever,
right?
But you got to look at what if you don't know how to do it. That's why I'm creating a brand that I'm going to do it for you, and then tell you exactly based upon how you want to feel what the ingredients are and what we've strived to give you. Because cannabis is not like, it's not a one-trick pony, right? You need, because you might have a bad experience. Guess what? You had something that was high level of THC that made you paranoid. That doesn't mean that if you get another strain or another variety, that's going to do the same thing. And in the mental issues and people that are suffering from PTSD, anxiety, stress related, the reason why when you consume and you feel better, and you're like, man, I feel better, is because of the terpenes and the ingredients in the plant. And I'm a living witness. I've been on planes since my accident. I have anxiety when I'm driving, and there's been times I had to stop, pull over, get my CBD drops, put one underneath my tongue, and be able to sit for a second and then take off. And the way that it reacts to the body, it happens just like that. Like no lie, like you can feel a calmness that comes over you, and you're like, okay, all right, I can do it. And I mean, it's just the reality of this plan and what I've dealt with from a personal perspective.
One of the reasons that I chose, so I launched the chapter for M4MM in Georgia at the end of 2017. I stayed there for a year, learned how to become an advocate and an activist within that community in that state. And then I moved to Nevada in the spring of 2019 because I needed access to safe medicine. While living in Georgia, you don't have access to safe medicine. The state of Georgia passed a law in 2016 that allows people with certain diseases to have a medical marijuana card. And that medical marijuana card really is just something that you can pull out in case you get pulled over with your medicine or in case you get caught with your medicine. But still today, 5 years later in the state of Georgia, you still cannot have flower. The only thing that you're allowed to have is a concentrate that has less than 5% THC in it. And still in the state of Georgia, they have over 10,000 patients that are enrolled in their medical marijuana program that have one of these cards. All of those patients are forced to go out of state, commit a federal crime to bring their medicine back into the state of Georgia, because you are not allowed, there's still nowhere in the state of Georgia for you to buy that medicine that they say you can legally have. And so I knew, as a Black woman living in a state where I was going around to all these towns and cities advocating for people to use cannabis as medicine, because that's what I was doing, I felt like it was just a matter of time before I ran out of luck, because I was having to go and get cannabis from out of state to bring it back into the state for me to use as medicine. And so it's hard. It's hard out here for people, for different communities to gain access to safe medicine. And so that's why I chose to move to a state like Nevada, where they mandate terpene testing. So in Nevada, every bottle of flower that you purchase, every concentrate, every edible has on their label printed the top 3 terpenes. And what terpenes are, like Roz was explaining, the terpenes are the compounds found on the plant that give it the aroma, that make it smell like skunk, or make it smell piney, or make it smell citrusy. And those compounds have physiological effects, which means that those are the things that make you feel sleepy, that make you feel happy, that make you feel focused, that make you feel relaxed, that make you feel giggly. Those are the compounds, not your THC and not your CBD. The compounds that make you feel the way that the plant makes you feel are the terpenes. And so as a patient, it was important for me to know what terpenes were in the flower that I was buying. And as a patient, it was important for me to have access to medicine that had gone through a testing process, so that I knew that it didn't have any bacteria or mold or anything else sprayed on it, for that matter, because I was consuming it daily and I needed access to safe, regulated, tested medicine. And so that's why I moved to a legal state. I had to become a medical cannabis refugee. And I know everyone in my community can't afford to do that, can't afford to move across the country just to have access to medicine. And so it's important for me to be able to educate my community on how to use cannabis as medicine, so that they can make the decision for themselves and their families.
That's amazing. Again, so you do have to be careful, not just, to do the research on where you're going, what's in it, how much, right? The formula, because the documentary that I happened to watch with my husband is really about even babies, young babies with cancer. But again,
seizures.
Yeah, it was drops, right?
Tinctures.
Formulas. So people don't go rogue and don't, just know that you have to do your research. You have to get with people that know what they're doing, and not just care about the money side of it, but the health side of it.
And one thing I'd like to share with your audience, as they're going out and learning more about using cannabis as medicine, how to ask whoever they're buying the medicine from, whether it's CBD or THC, ask for a COA. In our industry, that's known as the certificate of analysis. So a lot of times with a dispensary, when you're going into a regulated dispensary, the dispensary is going to have the COA on hand for every single SKU, every single product that they're selling. But that's probably mandated in the state, within the state's regulatory process. But for CBD, we know that everyone is not, following the same rules and regulations, because there's no federal regulation over CBD right now. It's kind of the wild, wild west. So you've got different states that say, okay, these are the regulations for our state and selling CBD in our state. But when you buy CBD, first of all, just don't go on Amazon. Don't buy CBD from your gas station. Don't do that. Like, before you go and buy any CBD products, yes, do your research. But one of the main things that you need to be asking for as a consumer is their COA. If they don't know what that is, then just walk away.
Run.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. So thank you for explaining the medical piece of it. We're going to do a station ID, and then we're going to talk about the business and the social justice aspect of this. So if you're just joining us, you are joined in Caribbean Diaspora Vibez Live, being streamed live on Caribbean American Diaspora on Facebook. My name is Donna Morton Morgan. I am the CEO, president of Women of Culture Incorporated, also Caribbean American Diaspora, and real estate broker of Florida Summer Homes Realty. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to go right into our Canna talk and talk about the business side. So you've heard about the awesome and the wonderful health benefits. But now let's talk a little money if you want to create a business. And so Ms. Roz, tell us about that.
Yeah, this is literally an industry that we will not see in our lifetime in regards to how fast it's growing. from a career perspective, from a ownership where you're talking about dollars, there's a lot of dollars going into it from investors. A lot of investors are putting money into the industry and hedging their bets that there is a demand for a product that currently right now, remember, is federally illegal. Cannabis right now is federally illegal. In my lifetime, we've never seen anything like this where your states are able to generate all of this tax revenue. They are being able to have businesses come into their state. However, there's no federal framework of how this translates over on the federal side. It makes it really tough on the business side, and it makes it so that states can arbitrarily make laws and put policy in place that really obstruct small businesses and medium-sized businesses to have an opportunity in the industry, and specifically Black folks. So we have been disproportionately 4-to-1 ratio. We're 4 times more likely to be arrested, incarcerated for this plant over the last 40 years. However, currently right now, we only sit between 2 to 3% of ownership of a cannabis company corporation that's touching the plant is people of color. Let me go back. That's Black people, African Americans. Now there are, if you expand that out, that 2 to 3% goes to about 5 to 6%. If you look at people of color, still that tells you got 95% of the people that are owning the businesses that are either cultivating the flower, producing the products, or having the dispensary for the retail are they are white Americans. And mainly
white men. Yes,
they're white men. The same white men who walk across us when we consume, and we are, we have been labeled as lazy, weak, not focused, not wanting to work. They were able to get into an industry and be able to finesse it and learn the nuances of the industry, get their other friends to get in, get their own capital in, and basically it's almost like a lockout. And that happened for years. And so with the addition of organizations like MCBA and you have other different smaller organization, advocacy organizations, we've been fighting for policy from a business perspective. Economics 101, supply and demand. There is a demand for this. We can we can be suppliers. Why are we not being able to be let into the industry and have an opportunity? So there's something called social equity. And social equity has been this program that has been pushed out over the last 7 years. And social equity, in a nutshell, is basically saying, if you've been harmed by the war on drugs, if you've been incarcerated, arrested, either yourself or an immediate family member, or you lived in a community that was disproportionately impacted, where you had hot zones of arresting for marijuana usage, that you could get front of the line to be able to get a license, to be able to operate and have your own business. The promise of that program and the opportunity of that program and the premise behind it, 100% on point. However, the execution of actually seeing that happen, where you see business owners that are now operating and building capacity and making money, it's still, we not there. And so there is a state by state, you're seeing people raise more conversation about social equity, about minority business participation. You're seeing our lawmakers ask more questions. 5 years ago, when I first started this, they weren't asking those questions. That was M for MM saying, hey, listen, state of Florida, what are we going to do about making sure Black folks don't get left out? So that's kind of where we are right now from a business perspective. There's 2 different business models if you touch the plant. A state can have a vertical business model, which means vertical, this pen, up and down. That means you cultivate, you process, you manufacture, you have retail stores, all of that under one license. And then we have a horizontal business model, and some states have this, and that means you can pick and choose what license you want to have. So you may have a cultivation license and maybe a retail license and not the stuff in between. And so what we're trying to fight for is for it to be an open market that basically says, if you have the permit, if you have the infrastructure, if you have the funding, if you get to choose which license type you want to go after, and it's not based upon the fact that, these arbitrary barriers to enter the market, but literally we're trying to make it so that it's an open market so that you can pick and choose what area that you want to specialize in and go after your license.
And I'd like to add to that, what Ross is speaking about is generally understood about the cannabis industry using high THC plants, using high THC genetics. That's what we're talking about when we say that the plant is still a Schedule I drug. Yeah, the plant is still not federally legal, but in 2018, the Farm Act of 2018 also included the Farm Bill also included the Hemp Act. And what that did, and the reason that you see CBD exploding everywhere, the reason you see CBD in your gas station and on Amazon, is because the Hemp Act of 2018 legalized industrial hemp again in this country. If you do your research and understand the history around this plant, then you'll understand that the United States Constitution is written on hemp paper. United States federal notes, meaning their money, used to be printed on hemp paper. So hemp used to be our biggest export. And in 1937, I'm sorry, when hemp was made illegal, it was because of when cannabis was made illegal, when they came up with the Marijuana Tax Act, it was because of hemp. Because William Hearst at the time was the biggest newspaper magnate in the world. And he had invested a lot of his money in timber and using timber to make paper. And so he wanted to eliminate his biggest competition, which was hemp. And so you have to understand the history behind it and realize and recognize that this plant is vast. Industrial hemp can make 60,000 different products. Industrial hemp can clothe you, can feed you, can fuel your car, can build a whole car, can build a whole house. So you have to understand the dynamics of this plant and understanding that the barriers to entry to get into the hemp licensing space is much lower than to get into the medicinal marijuana space. And so we're talking about the plant in many different ways, but understanding that hemp is more valuable and it is more profitable if you understand how it works. The barriers to entry aren't as expensive, and you don't have to show as much capital to acquire a cultivation license for hemp, to acquire a dispensing license or production and manufacturing license for hemp. And so just understanding the different dynamics of this plant, and that comes with the research, knowing that, yes, they've created a lot of barriers to entry for us to get into the medical cannabis side of the industry, but also recognize that hemp is an opportunity for you to get into the long game of this industry as well.
Okay, so that's good to know. So is there for each state, is there qualifications like, you can't get into this if you've got XYZ? Is there like a list for qualifications?
Yeah, so for each state, you have to first the first thing you do is look at the rules and regulations that is overseeing the state's program. So for your state, you have to identify, is that state a medical state or is it medical and adult use, right? And sometimes they say recreational, but it means adult use. Once you identify that, 9 times out of 10, if it's a medical only state, you'll go to the Department of Health, and the Department of Health will give you guidelines in regards to how to get your card, how to, what the fees are. If you're interested in being an operator in the state, it will give you all of those specifics or what have you. The issue is that the state can arbitrarily decide on when they open up the application for people to apply. It's a very arbitrary, it's very microaggressive in my opinion. It tends to be, it's very much a controlling type of situation where people think that this plant, that if I grow it, if I touch it, I'm about to be like some, like Colombia Mafia or something like that. And it's not that. So the more that we talk about this from a beneficial area, from medical perspective, I think the more that we'll get lawmakers and policymakers to really reduce some of those barriers of entry from an economic perspective. But that means that if you want to get in the industry, I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh, Roz, I want to get in the industry. I want to. You can't just walk in and be like, you got to go do your research. You got to go understand. You got to go shake some hands. You got to go present yourself. The number one thing you can do is be an advocate in your state. So whatever state that you're in, go learn about the medical marijuana laws or the adult use laws in your state. And then, of course, join M4MM. Be a member of M4MM or follow us. Or we've produced in 6 years over 10,000 hours of webinars, training, education, you name it. We have a YouTube channel. All this stuff that we've made available. So there's no excuse. All you got to do is go watch it, fast forward through the stuff you don't want to watch, but it's there for you. And then of course we do boot camps and other different things to help and support, you know, our community to participate.
I love
And
it.
a lot of times, I just wanted to add to that. A lot of I get the same thing. A lot of people are like, I want to be in this industry. I want to own a dispensary. I had a sister that just moved from Texas here to Nevada, and she thought it was as simple as going down to the to the licensing department, the business licensing department, and buying a license to own a dispensary. And no, honey, that's not how it works. First of all, the state of Nevada is not giving out any more dispensary licenses. So if you want to move into the state of Nevada and own a dispensary, you have to buy a license that's already in existence from someone who is willing to sell it to you for anywhere between $2 and $4 million. So if you don't have that kind of money, then and if nobody is selling a license, then you're just kind of stuck. That's not the lane you're going to be able to get into. So you have to understand, like Roz said, do your homework, do your research. All of this information is public information. You can't guess or assume anything in this space. So don't think that it's like any other business license that you're just about to go to California and open up a dispensary. No, that's not how it works. So you have to do your research, like Roz said. You have to know who the players are. You have to invest a certain amount of your business budget into lobbying. You have to understand that if you want to be a business license holder in this space, you're going to have to lobby to get into this space. You're going to have to pay someone that's going to schmooze legislators to allow you, or to say, you know, to lobby to get more licenses opened in your state. Those kind of things. So you just have to understand what the regulations are and make sure you're playing by the rules, so that you can be a part of the legal market. I mean, because obviously there are still operators that are operating in the legacy market. That's what we like to call it, not the black market, but the legacy market. And so understanding what the risks are if you're operating in the legacy market, but also understand what it requires to get into the legal market.
So thank you for that. Definitely do your homework before you start moving cross town. Roz, do you have a second to tell us, Florida, since we're in Florida, what is our rules, real short?
Yeah, so currently right now, Florida is a vertical business model state. So remember when I told you I use a pen, that means you do everything: cultivation, manufacturing, processing, retail, delivery, everything is under one license, right? So the state of Florida, just for paper alone, if you want to buy a license, just the license of paper would be anywhere between 50 to 55, $60 million, literally, right? So what's happening right now is the state of Florida was supposed to, after every 250,000 people that came on the service, or maybe it was a little less than that, maybe after every 100,000 people that came on service, they got a card, they were supposed to open up and add 5 more operators into the system. Well, that hasn't been happening because there was a lawsuit. Flory Grown was suing the state of Florida, saying that the whole entire system was unconstitutional. Well, the Supreme Court basically in October of 2021 decided against Flory Grown and said that it was constitutional what was happening in regards to how to get a license. And so what ended up happening is the state of Florida is now trying to go back in reverse and start bringing on new operators into the system, right? So the first new license that's going to actually be applied for, and it's due on March 25th, is called the Pigford Black Farmers license. So back in 2017, when they were legislating and basically putting the language in for the state of Florida, one thing that we all lobbied for was we wanted Black farmers to have to participate. So the state of Florida put legislation in that said, if you are someone, if you're a Black farmer, and if you were part of the Pigford-Glickman lawsuit, which was a case, it was the Pigford versus USDA. It happened in the late 80s, early 90s. If you were a part of that lawsuit, you have an opportunity to go and get a license to be an operator in the state of Florida. My issue is they only gave you one license, and it's almost like, well, we just gonna give the Black people one chance. And if you don't, so it should be multiple licenses. Long story short, that license type is going to be, that application is due on March 25th. Shortly thereafter, sometime in April, May, I think they're going to release the information for other entities who want to apply for a license. I know there's going to be 5 for sure. It might be 10. The fee for the application to apply for the license is $167,000. non-refundable, off the top. That's
does
not
guarantee you get a license.
No. That's not you hiring your consultants to help you prepare for the application. The actual application in totality can be up to 100 pages. It literally is just that in itself of having to put so much money out, not guarantee that you're going to get it back, just to compete for a license can be considered microaggressive in itself, right? And so that's the reality of where we are in Florida. I do believe that we have minority business enterprises that can partner up together and bring resources together that can go after these licenses. You need money, but you also need expertise, and you also need a team. So anyone that's looking to go after this, when it comes out, you cannot do it alone. You need to develop a team. You need to identify people that have resources and knowledge that will add to the value of the questions and the application that you have to submit. How do you find those people? You tap into InfraMM. You tap into different tap into states that already have a legalized program. You Google, you go to Facebook, you look at, if you put in Ohio medical cannabis, you can put a notice, say, hey, I'm looking for a cultivation manager to help me that wants to be a part of an application for Florida. You'll be very surprised if you put it out there, you will get it back in return. The number one thing that you need in order to apply, you need a great project manager. You need someone that knows how to manage the project, manage all the parts of the application, and make sure all of the information that you have to give to the state is given to that project manager so they can book it up really nice and neat and turn it in on time for you. That's the number one thing. You get a strong project manager, you can do it.
So Roz, when we're seeing all the little mom and pops everywhere saying CBD sold here, what is?
Yeah. So the difference is the CBD plant and the hemp plant and the cannabis plant, they're in the same family, but the composition of them are differently, right? The main driver that's the difference in both plants is the fact that if you have a cannabis plant, it has a high level of THC that's above 0.3%, right? In order to be a CBD product that comes from hemp, it has to test less than 0.3%. So
THC,
when you see
less than 0.3% THC.
Right. And THC stands for tetrahydrocannabinol. Cannabinol.
Yes.
So when you see the different CBD stores and things of that nature, what they've done is they've either partnered with someone probably out of state, because Florida's hemp program is still new and still up and going, but they've been able to get product. They probably have a buyer who sourced product, and this product has been tested. Remember what Nicole said? She said the certificate of analysis has been looked at and reviewed, and they've been able to put products into those stores. And that's how, when you walk in, and then they retail it. So it may cost $7 to make it, but they retail it for $45. So it's a high margin opportunity as well.
CBD products.
Yes, for those that want to get into it, that's the whole conversation. We're having a so Donna, this is good. For Juneteenth weekend, InfraMM is hosting a Sow the Land Hemp Farming Symposium. It's going to be in Fort Valley, Georgia. It's June 17th and 18th, 2 days of intensive training. We're going to make sure we feed you. We're going to educate you. You're going to network. We're going to talk about, we have 2 tracks. We have Freedom to Grow, which is going to be for your hemp farmers, about equipment and planning and industrial hemp and cooperatives and things of that nature. And then we have another track that's called Freedom to Flow. And that's all about your CBD retailer, packaging, marketing, branding, online presence, how to set up a store. So if you have anyone out there that wants to get involved and attend that, we're going to have it on our website come Monday. It's $149 for 2 days, and we're feeding you both days. I mean, it's going to be incredible, and it's only going to be so many slots.
So one of the things that I want to add on to what Roz just explained, for all of you who might not understand, in 2018, when the Hemp Act was passed in the U.S. Farm Bill, what that did was it legalized industrial hemp again in our country. Remember, I mentioned that hemp, United States Constitution was written on hemp paper, Hemp used to be our biggest export. So when the Marijuana Tax Act was created in 1937, it made hemp and cannabis illegal, all of it, the whole plant, right? It criminalized it. And so what the Hemp Act did in 2018 was it said, okay, the cannabis plant that has less than 0.3% THC in it is now legal. That's what they did. That's why you see CBD, because industrial hemp has high percentages of CBD. It has, like Roz said, in order for it to technically to be industrial hemp, according to law, it has to have less than 0.3% THC in it. And that is considered the industrial hemp plant. So that means it has high potency of CBD and low potency of THC. Anything with more than 0.3% THC in it is still a Schedule I drug and still considered federally illegal. So I just wanted to explain that so people understand the difference between, it's one plant, but think about it in this way. Think about the hemp plant as the male version of the plant, and think about high THC plant as the female version of the plant. And they're treated in different ways in the eyes of the federal government of the United States.
Great information. As we wrap up, we want to, before we get you guys information, tell us a little bit, a snippet about the social justice aspect. I know it's continuing, and we're gonna also let you leave your handles, Facebook, IG, etc., so we can follow you. But do you want to wrap up with the social justice aspect, Roz?
Sure, I'll make it quick because it's real simple, and it is something that we live by and that we are committed to. Individuals who have been harmed, who have been incarcerated, arrested, again, 4 times more likely people of color, Black people, Black men specifically, right? And so a part of this legalized industry, and something that we're holding the industry accountable to, which we've never seen, is a social justice, a call to action to make sure that we're not forgetting these people that are either still incarcerated or they're home and they still have this on their record and they're not able to get jobs, they're not able to get housing, they're not able to create careers for themselves because you have a blight about a marijuana possession from 1992. That's ridiculous. So we are imploring the state of Florida, we're imploring other different states. Our social justice commitment is that we want to see expungement. We want to have automatic expungement from executives at the state level, at the local level, that basically decriminalizes this plant. We want folks not to be going to jail. No more sniff and search. No more of tracking people based upon the fact that you smell like cannabis and so you might be doing something nefarious. And so the work that we have to do on the social justice side is so important to us as an organization. But more importantly, we are holding the industry accountable. This industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You will not see another industry that's making the social justice points just as much of a priority as the economic or creating profits. Yes, these people want to make money, but I will tell you this, that we are pushing them, advocates like NICOLE and all these across the country, we're pushing them to make it a priority to deal with the social injustices that we still see when it comes to this plant. So it's something that we're not going to lean off of. We're not going to give in. We're not going to capitulate and be like, oh, well, that's okay. No, it's really important to make a difference on social justice and get these people home and get their records cleared.
And we're behind you. Caribbean American Diaspora Alliance, we are behind you 100% with that, because so we're definitely support. Ladies, NICOLE, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Roz said, that it's not just people being arrested. It's also women of color who are getting their babies taken from them at birth because they test positive for THC, even in a legal state. So if you're using cannabis as medicine, and you test positive for THC, the DFACs will come and take your baby, come and take your children away. And so you're denied social programming fund support because you have THC in your system or because you use cannabis. So those are the kind of things that that is also part of the social justice issue when it comes to, because those women that get tested more often than not are women of color. They don't treat white mothers the same way that they treat Black mothers. And that's also an issue that we recognize is happening across the country. And so I just wanted to add to that on to what Roz is saying. And I'll share my handles now. You can find me at Purple Plant Magic on Instagram, and that is my website as well, purpleplantmagic.com, which is a consulting agency. So I help to create custom curriculums. I help to guide people on their natural plant medicine journey, allowing them to learn more about the plant and how to use it as medicine. And so that's where you can find me.
Wonderful. And you see the purple hair.
And you can also find me working at Minorities for Medical Marijuana. M for MM is my cannabis family. I would not be where I am without them. I'm so grateful to Roz, who is like an auntie to me. She's been my mentor through this process the last 4 years. And it's just been a blessing to be able to learn from her and the rest of the executives on our team, like Eric Range, who's our board chair, Dashida Dawson, who was our chief marketing officer when I first started. So many other women that are leading and making history in this space. And I get to learn from them and understand how to be a part of this space and how to be effective to my community. So I'm very grateful for M for MM for being like my earning my doctorate in cannabis, I feel like is what I'm doing through this process.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And Roz, what's how do you want to wrap?
Absolutely.
22?
So just to wrap up, thank you so much, Donna, for having this conversation, being bold enough to say we need to talk about this. It needs to happen more. We really appreciate you having us on today. You can find me at m4mmunited.org. That's M as in Mary, the number 4, M as in Mary, united.org. M4MM United on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I mean, that's our handle. So you can find us under M4MM United. I'm excited about my own brand that's coming out. It's called Black Buddha Cannabis. We're literally going state by state, creating agreements with operators and being able to bring products to the community that really are focused on wellness, on feeling better, doing better, and getting better, right? At the end of the day, that's all we want to be. As I'm aging, as I'm starting to age, as I'm aging, we have little creaks, right? And we just want to feel better. I don't want to be high. I don't want to be, blasted off my butt. I want to just feel better. And I will tell you, this plant has done, it's just made an impact on my life. And so my way of leaving a legacy, not only for my children, but for consumers, is creating a brand that is all about you guys feeling better. So Black Buddha Cannabis, Black, BUDDHA Cannabis, you can find .co is the website, and you can find Black Buddha Cannabis on IG as well as Facebook and Instagram. So Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Wonderful, wonderful information, everyone. Wow, that was a lot. And again, this is saved at Caribbean American Diaspora, and we will be sharing it on our Facebook page at Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. Thank you so much for sharing your Saturday. Nicole, I know you're 3 hours behind us. You've got a little bit. Roz needs to get out on the town.
No, I don't. I got work to do. Listen, Roz is in the office still, and so my office building they shut down, so I got to get my things packed up. But I am. Listen, I am a woman with a vision, with a mission, with a passion, and also I am committed to. I'm not going to be an advocate only. I'm going to be a business owner and leave a legacy for my children, something they can be proud of. And so I work, like literally 7 days a week, but it's for a reason and for a purpose, and it makes sense. And I'm so committed to it. So that's what I'm about to do.
All right, and we're here, right. Roz. Anything you want to share? Anytime you want to jump on, and let's keep this going, because we believe in what you do. I've seen you. I was there when you said, girl, I'm gonna do this business, and I looked at you, and so she did, because we used to be back in the Caribbean Chamber days. We'd be always interacting,
hanging out. Yeah. I left off. It was great, but it was almost like it's just something said in my spirit, like, Roz, do this. And so I've just been grateful for the opportunity. And anybody if you need me, you can go to our website, find out how to reach me, and I'm there.
Ms. Donna, can I add, just before we leave, since a lot of your audience are from the diaspora, I am as well. That's my ancestral home is Trinidad and Dominica. There's a lot of work that's being done throughout the Caribbean and even in Africa. And so if you know someone that has land in the Caribbean, if you know someone that has land in Africa, now is the time to, it might not be legal in your country, right? Like right now I'm working with an NGO in the country of Trinidad and Tobago, and they decriminalized 2 years ago. And so now they're talking about adult use. And so it's important that if you are from there, or you have people from there, or you still have citizenship there, it's important that you learn what's happening in your home country, because there are things that are moving. And if you want to participate in the industry there, now is the time to educate yourself, align yourself with the nonprofits that are working on the ground in those countries. And it's the chance and the opportunity is there. And the benefit comes to people who are citizens. So if you still hold citizenship there, or if you still have family there, now's the time to get them educated. I just want to shout out to my activists on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago, Cannabis and You. They're an active group working in the country of Trinidad and Tobago to help legalize in that country. So it's happening. Now's the time.
Yes, and we've had wonderful comments on Facebook, bigging you guys up, you ladies up. So blessings to you again. Thank you for sharing. Roz, I know you've got to go. Thank you. We're going to connect soon and keep the connection going, right?
That's right.
You, Nicole. Hey, appreciate it to you.
It's been my pleasure. It's been my pleasure.
Dr. Bavon, she's on, but she's in the background. So thank you all for joining us in Caribbean Diaspora Vibes, and we'll see you next week as we're celebrating Women's History Month. Be blessed.